I know how important it was at times in my life to be able to look around me and see reflections of myself within my community. And when there have been times when I've been unable to do that, that has made me feel isolated, othered, alone, maybe even fearful, depending upon the situation and the circumstance. And I think that that's what's happening for a lot of folks, is that they're starting to not see themselves as much in the world around them, and they don't know how to cope or handle that. And the one thing that I do want to say, though, is that we do not have to live in a world that always reflects us back to ourselves, in the sense that I've come to gain so much from being close to, in relation, that's in like physicality, but also like in intimate relationships, as far as like in conversation and work environments or whatever, with folks who are different from myself, or people who I perceive to be different from me. That I've gained so much more. I've come to know more about myself, and come to know a little bit more about the world on a bigger level, when I've been able to find myself in spaces that are not, in which I'm not just surrounded by my sameness. And I still often find a lot of refuge and safety and comfort in environments that can be more same focused, in the sense that, like right now, as a trans person, I feel really difficult. I have a really difficult time being anywhere that's not LGBTQ, or obviously LGBTQ kind of friendly place. So I understand like why representation matters, or why it's important to have a space in which my identities can connect with somebody else's identities, in order for me to feel like I belong, to feel a part of, to feel safe, to gain strength, to get inspiration, to be able to just even let go of that long enough to live outside of that identity, or that experience even. And sometimes, like the rest of the world doesn't give us that opportunity, no matter, it's like and oftentimes like LGBTQ folks are only LGBTQ folks to folks who are not LGBTQ. That's why people are like upset that gay people are being talked about in grade school, because all they're thinking about is our sexuality. They're not thinking about us beyond our sexuality, because that's all they see us as. If they saw gay people, lesbian people, trans people beyond their sexual identity or gender identity, which transness even has nothing to do with sexuality, and yet that's what they want to, like label it or whatever. And that's the whole thing. It's like we all should be able to get to a point in our lives where we can live beyond what our identities are. And the only reason we have our identities, I think, is just because of the way that we are at this moment in time in our life. I think it's the way that we grow to where we are. And that's why representation matters, is because we're trying to create a world in which these sorts of things don't need to matter anymore. But the truth is that these things have mattered for so long. I remember when I first got HIV, I didn't know a lot about it. It was a scary thing. And I remember when I started doing HIV work, I was trying to figure out, how can we talk about HIV with a community that is at high risk for HIV in a way that is helpful to hopefully prevent them and stop them from getting the virus. But if they do get the virus, that it's not such a more traumatic and difficult thing, that if they do end up getting the virus, or someone in their family has it, that they can still have strength and hope, that they could still have a fulfilling life, or, health, like that there's still life beyond that thing that they're going through. And so for me, and even in talking about like disclosure was kind of a big thing, people being able to come out, if you will, and talk about their HIV status, if not in front of everyone, at least in groups of people, was a way for us to begin to be better with that thing. Where was I going with that? Because part of my thoughts on that are, so a lot of the language was, I'm trying to think the best way to kind of illustrate this. HIV/AIDS used to be a thing. And, as an HIV positive person, once I was HIV positive, it was helpful for me to understand the difference between HIV and AIDS. And to some degree, I could feel more safe in the fact, or comfortable in the fact, that I have HIV, and hopeful rather than the fact that I had an AIDS diagnosis. One of the things that was really difficult is that I needed to be able to still have my strength and faith and hope, even one day when or if I did get that AIDS diagnosis, so that I didn't get that AIDS diagnosis and then like kind of give up. And I think that's like the thing is like, right now we're here. And so a lot of my response was and my mind is going everywhere, but because I remember just having this thought of like, we talk about all the negatives about getting HIV, or the negatives about even being gay and coming out, of the fact that our families aren't going to love us anymore, and we're going to lose our jobs, and we're going to lose our homes, and we're going to, like, all these sorts of negative things are going to happen. And also though, some of us, our families are going to love us anyway. Some of us aren't going to lose our jobs. Some of us are going to live for 20 plus years. Some of us are, you know what I mean? Like, there's actually a lot of really positive, I guess, or more affirming experiences that can happen when we come out about our transness or our gayness or our HIV. But oftentimes what's focused is on the negative aspect. And my feeling was, in order to combat stigma and help people feel more comfortable with coming out and talking about their HIV status, was to help people see that there is a world that can love and can accept them for who they are and how they are, which was a big part of my own experience with dealing with HIV. Until I was able to be open about the fact that I have HIV, to be able to be loved and affirmed anyway, then I could begin to see that I could have a life beyond my HIV diagnosis. And even in my trans experience, I feel like that's been, again, kind of a similar pattern. And again, I only see the world from the way that I've seen the world, and it's limited, right? It's just from my understanding of things. But my transness at this point in time in my life is that space where I'm still trying to find that, those spaces that can affirm me and love me anyway, because I had the same fears that I would lose family, I would lose friends, I would lose all these sorts of things. And I've lost a lot of those things, or those things have become very complicated, or the access to those things have become very distant and far between to not at all. However, just because it might not work in the same places that it once did before does not mean that it can't thrive and do well in a different environment. So that's, I think, why like representation matters. I've spoken about it over and over and over, and probably so many of my videos that it's probably like annoying, but it was really important for me to be able to see myself in others first, to see who I could really become. And so, I know for me, getting to Chicago and then getting to San Francisco, getting to be in community with other trans folks, getting to be in community with other spiritual people who are not in the traditional sense, like all those sorts of things were really important for me to begin to come to know and understand more of myself by being with others around that. And it wasn't for me to become what those people were, but it was for me to find myself somewhere between them and myself, to expand myself, to stretch myself into a fuller expression of myself. And whether that's something that is brand new for me, or it's something that I've been aware of and unable to really tap into or express or connect with.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, There's nothing missing now that you're my desire.